If you make techno, you need to know how to make acid. And in this video, I'll explain exactly that. How even a beginner, and everyone actually, can make a very nice acid lead in Serum. I'll show you some secret techniques that I've never seen on the internet before, and I hope you just learn some dope stuff about sound design. So let's get right into it, and please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Let's open up Serum, and let's get an acid MIDI. Let's get through it step by step. I'm not gonna focus on this rhythm because that's just something you'll make yourself. So first thing we want to worry about is the legato. Just put it on mono legato and a slide of like 60 milliseconds. Let's also clean up this to 24, and we will start with a basic saw wave. So what you then want to do obviously is directly get into the filter. In this filter, you're going to select something like MG Low 1824 or whatever. We'll get in different modes, but let's start with MG Low 18. Get envelope 2, make it look something like this, and add that to the cutoff. Make it go down a bit and then add it here. The lowest point is where the plug starts. Acid really is prominent because you boost the mid frequencies. So you want to start around 130 Hertz because then you get this wow wow sound, and which you wouldn't get if you boost the sub. Because we're going to use the resonance, and that is going to boost around that frequency range, which is like, you know, 100 Hertz. So let's start on 110 so that it starts in the mids. And don't make it go too far open, otherwise you get this clicky sound. So this is good. Now open up the resonance. So what's important now is that you get a distortion mode. We'll go back into the filter obviously, but yeah, distortion mode. And now we go and open the drive. Obviously, you want to use a tube distortion, soft clipper, hard clipper, but you don't really want to use downsample or zero square. It doesn't work. Maybe stomp box or tape saturation. Why you want to use these modes is because it's a vintage sound and people use the TB303, which with like this classic distortion, maybe like a tube overdriver. So that's why you want to use a normal clipping mode like tube or stomp box. I think stomp box is great because it leaves a little bit of this gritty analog vintage sound. So as you can hear. There you go. So let's get back into the filter. There's three options you have. You can make acid with a low pass, you can make acid with a high pass, and you can make acid with a band pass. So it all depends on the sound you want, but a low pass sounds like that. And then we go into the high pass, and it's a little bit different, it's more snappy, but you can inverse it. We can do it like this. And then if we take the band pass, which is, in my opinion, the best one. Let's open the drive and the fat. So let's go with a band pass. And once you've tweaked it a bit so that it sounds acidy, you can then choose to take envelope 2 and make it longer so the decay gets longer. If you go for the second mode, so this is like the next step in your acid progression, is like if you make a longer envelope like this, you need to add an envelope on top of that to get an initial clicky sound in the acid. So in this case, let's add envelope 3, make it shorter, and add this to the cutoff as well. And let's start the cutoff at a lower point. And I also want to add envelope 3 to the resonance a little bit, so that it opens up the resonance in the beginning to make it more clicky. We can change the band pass to make it tighter, or we can change to low pass. But then you need to tweak everything else to make it work again. So let's take 24. You want to go into the velocity or the note section. So velocity just means if I change the velocity like this here, it's going to automate. So higher velocity gets a higher automation point. So if I add the velocity to the cutoff now, it means that the lowest velocity point is this cutoff range and the highest velocity point is this cutoff range. So this would get the lowest and this would get the highest. What I want to do is just tweak between the mid range based on velocity. So now let's add a little bit of release to every envelope because it's clicking at the end. The click usually starts because you have a little bit of too much distortion or like artifacts, but also because you're playing in the bass range. So let's get an EQ and let's get rid of the bass. And as you can hear, you really get into that analog sound right now. And I think we're at a good point right now. And what you can also do is take the note, and just because you're at a higher note, what usually happens, look, if I take this one, it loses the power because you're not really in the low mid-range anymore, and then you don't get that acid sound like this one. So that's why I take the note automation as well, where it responds to the pitch of the note. And in case normally we would go, the normal way, but I'm going to inverse it. So let's add it on inverse mode and add this to this thing. The higher you go in the note, the lower this range goes. It is just a liven it up a little bit, so that if you go in a higher range, you also really get that nice acid sound. This is the initial setup, and now we can go into sound design. So we've been working with a saw wave, and the cool thing you can do is take the randomized knob and take it down, so that you have the phase at the 0 randomized at all times. Then you open the unison to 2 or 3, and then you do it very slightly like this. Now you open it up on this frequency spectrum, but this is very wide. Stereo spectrum, sorry. So I like to take a unison of 3, take the blend mode down. Now you've opened it up, which is really cool. You could also take the randomized knob and put it on 0 and then have unison 16. But now you get a muddy sound. So that's why you use the randomized knob open up. So if you want a normal detuned saw wave type of acid sound, open up the randomized knob that's randomized and then to the detune around this range. But I like to use 3 and blend it like that and put the randomized down. Very nice. Another thing you can do is go into basic shapes and you're going to use different ones. So a sine wave is not going to work. Saw wave. Nope. Square wave. That definitely works. This one maybe gets more gritty, but I think you should choose between a saw wave, square, or any square variation. So now we have this ready, and what we can do now is add a macro. So macro 1 is going to go to the cutoff, and it's going to allow you to go from maximum range should be like that. Macro 1. That's a nice range until this point, I guess. There you go. Now we can add this thing to the resonance too. So macro 2 goes to resonance. So we have 2 macros to automate. I can't type for some reason, so resonance and cut off. Nice. What you can do now afterwards is add a little bit of hyperdimension on any unison mode that you like, to give that analog vintage chorus sound, because it's also findable in like the Roland TB303. So you can do the same thing with the chorus. Take down the feed and the delay. And now the fun part starts where you can, get a filter. In this filter, you're going to take the reverb filter, put that around this range, and then take the mix down. And now take an LFO2, put this on something like a bar, so that it takes a bar and an off mode. Add this to the mix, that at the end of the bar, it opens up like that. And add the resonance like that as well, maybe a little bit of damping. And you can change the cutoff very slightly, because in the reverb filter, you don't want to do that too much. So that's nice, but what I feel like is that, we're using a band filter. You can use a high pass filter too. We just got to tweak everything, which is a little bit scary because this cutoff knob is put to envelope 2, 3, and these 2, and the velocity and the notes. So if we change something and we fuck it up, we screwed it up. So yeah, fine. And I can take different filters, and the filter is what really changes the whole sound anyways. I think the band 24 works really good all the time. Change the distortion mode. Change the length of envelopes. I think that's fine, and you can open up the drive to get a little bit more power of your distortion. Finally, oscillator B, you can add FM from B and, FM modulate based on this one, and it changes the sound a little bit. And that's just if you want to get some experimental techno going. That's basically it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed this, go leave a like, subscribe and comment. It helps a lot. Download the patch for free on our website, and also download a lot of free techno sample packs on our website as well. Hope to see you in the next video. Cheers.